Elliptic's recent research has found that crypto is being used in the trade of fentanyl and that the attackers behind the atomic wallet hack are using OFAC sanctioned exchange Garantex to move stolen funds. Joining us now to discuss the latest in crypto crime and risk management is John Melican, Chief Legal Officer at blockchain analytics firm Elliptic. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So let's dive right into the first report I mentioned. Recent research from both Chainalysis and Elliptic point to the trade for fentanyl precursors and fentanyl itself being funded by crypto. Talk to us about some of the key findings.
I mean, the findings are really remarkable. If you step back for a second and think about what's happening here, China outlawed the sale of fentanyl just recently after tremendous pressure from the U.S. and other international players. The reaction of that was fascinating. They, of course, didn't stop producing fentanyl, or they did stop producing it and stop shipping it to the U.S., but now there's a market for the precursors of fentanyl. The Mexican drug cartels have stepped into the void that was created by the lack of direct shipment of fentanyl from China, and now they're producing it in Mexico and subsequently shipping it to the U.S. So that dynamic is in itself slightly terrifying and remarkable. We recognize that there, through some research, that there was a trade in these precursors, and we wanted to see if there was an active use of crypto. There had been one or two designations of crypto wallets related to fentanyl before this, and we set out to explore it. What we found was that we contacted about 90 different Chinese chemical producers. Of those 90 producers, most of them, about 90% of them, took crypto. The thing that's not getting a lot of publicity is the fact that 100% of them really seem to take fiat as well. They were willing to take wire transfers and other forms of payment through intermediaries. That process is a lot less transparent than with crypto. What we were able to do was take the crypto wallets that they provided us, those addresses, and then start to track and compile all the other activity that had gone through them and start to build out that network. And what we found was that there were tens and tens of millions of dollars going through these wallets that were shipping likely fentanyl precursors to Mexico that would then be created into actual fentanyl or other opioids, synthetic opioids that are shipped primarily to the U.S. or Mexico and around the world. I think we also have to acknowledge what's happening with the fentanyl crisis. Importantly, I think, and I'll try to accurately state it, but the administrator for the DEA, Ann Milgram, stated the other day that fentanyl is the single deadliest drug threat our nation has ever faced, and it's killing scores of Americans every single day. The fact of the matter is that this is a very difficult situation. If this was all happening at once, this would be a national emergency of epic proportions with tens and tens of thousands of Americans dying. But this is happening in small towns and in big cities and dark corners to very vulnerable people. And what we're trying to do is just shine a light on how we can help in that regard by identifying these crypto wallets and making them public. And I think that's what should be getting attention here, is how crypto can be used to help in the war against fentanyl and opioids.
Yeah, I mean, John, I know of a case that it unfortunately took somebody's life this past week, and how much of we could say, an apologist would say, well, the fentanyl problem, drugs, and et cetera, illicit activity is a small percentage of what crypto does. But how much of this trade is dependent on crypto? In other words, yes, they all do take fiat. Everyone likes to take fiat. But if we look at how important is the fact that is crypto, the ease in which the transactions can occur cross-border, et cetera, how crucial is it in facilitating the fentanyl trade into Mexico, into the United States? Do we have a percentage of how much of that is of that trade is done through crypto?
I don't think we do, because I don't think we have the overall market. And that's part of the issue here, is that if this trade is conducted in fiat currencies, it's fairly unknowable as to what the extent of that is. Obviously, if it's been identified in SARS and those SARS have been filed saying, hey, this is likely fentanyl precursors being imported, we could get a number around that. I haven't seen that number released. But this really draws the stark disparity between crypto and fiat. There's a level of transparency with crypto that's just completely unknown to the fiat world. I spent close to 15 or 20 years in compliance inside major institutions working on anti-money laundering and sanctions programs. I know how difficult it is for them to find and identify illicit activity, including this type of activity. And I know how hard they're trying and how much money they're spending on that type of interdiction. But it's very difficult, and no outsiders can come in and see it as a whole. In this case, we have an incredibly talented group of researchers here at Elliptic. They sat down with a problem set, and within a few weeks and months, came up with this research. They executed it, and they were able to identify tens of millions of dollars. We saw that 27 million in crypto had been received. That was a huge increase in the amount of crypto that had gone through these wallets before, but we don't know whether that's 27 million as a percentage of the larger number that's probably occurring in fiat. So I would say that any reduction, $27 million worth of crypto precursors identified, is significant because it is going to help people and help prevent those opioids from getting into the U.S. or anywhere in the world for that matter. If to put it in some kind of context, though, that $27 million we estimated using public data would create about $54 billion worth of fentanyl products. And that is just a tremendous amount of poison circulating in our society. So any amount helps, but I don't think we know the answer to your specific question because we can't see the entire picture that's happening in fiat. And we can't claim to say that we know everything that's happening in crypto either, but we did identify a significant swath. And we're obviously making that public and trying to help law enforcement, trying to help the DEA in what they've declared is a very critical mission for that agency. And I think that's an important exercise.
Quickly, so Elizabeth Warren jumped on this. Obviously this has a potential to become a big political talking point for people who don't like crypto to begin with, and kind of suggested that, there was sort of regulation needed to is that really, is regulation a potential, or is this just one of these things where like crypto is used to buy good things and bad things? And, and as you said, at least crypto has some transparency to it.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to misstate, but I think she said that crypto was appealing to these pharmaceutical companies that were providing the precursors. The fact that it's appealing, I don't know whether it's more or less appealing than fiat. Listen, if you've got ways to launder money, and I've been working on money laundering for a long time, there are things that are convenient and not convenient. If you were to try to launder money through stolen artwork, it's very difficult. If you show up with the Mona Lisa at a pawn shop, there's not a lot of buyers. It's just very difficult to launder that. And what we're seeing with fentanyl trade into Atomic is they're looking for ways to launder funds that are more flexible. They want to do what every good salesperson does. They want to offer you options. If you want to pay in crypto, yes, we can take crypto. We take Amex and American Express. It's a convenience factor. I don't know that it's driving the market. I don't think that they see there are any particular advantages to crypto. The interactions that we had on the research team seem to indicate that they would take either one, but it seemed that the predominant goal was to take payment in likely a fiat currency. And they had intermediaries set up to hide who they were and what they were doing in that process as well. I think everybody's got the same goal here. The interesting thing would be if you took providers like Actimize or Mantis, who are leading providers in transaction monitoring services for financial institutions, and you question them, are they doing research into the fentanyl trade? The answer is no, not because they're not great firms with great products. It's because they can't. It's not disclosed necessarily the same way, and it's much harder to trace. In a process that happens in fiat, this is very slow. And I think, regulation that exists in the fiat world designed to prevent this is probably working as best it can, but there are still gaps in it. And there's still challenges with preventing any drug trade in fiat, as well as there would be if they were taking crypto. So I think it's a pick 'em for the buyer here, whether they want which mechanism they want to use. But I don't think it's driving the market.
John, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Great.
That was Elliptic Chief Legal Officer John Melican.